Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Lewisboro Town Board meeting for Monday, November 13th, 2023. For those in the room, the exits are towards the front of the building and the rear of the building. If you will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with public comment. Anyone here in the room would like to speak? Oh, actually, sorry.
I'm Martha Goodman, Lewisboro Hamlet, longtime resident. I just saw on tonight's agenda that under new business, there was going to be a resolution approving staying in the PFAS class action lawsuit. And I was just wondering if there was going to be any discussion of that and the whys and the hows and my understanding of it, but it was from a newspaper article, so I have no idea if it was accurate or not. Was that there was some idea that maybe Lewisboro had enough to go it alone.
That was inaccurate.
It was totally inaccurate then. Okay. All right. All right.
But thank you.
So
Stay tuned.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. That's it.
You. Anybody else here on Zoom?
Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay, first of all, congratulations to everybody on the election. Also, I want to bring up my prior comments at the October 10th meeting regarding the EV chargers and Golden's Bridge, how I discussed the detrimental effects of the fake lighting, the extremely green, bright fake lighting on the environment, as well as the fact that it just is a horrible aesthetic in that parking lot. So I've been doing some reading since then regarding these fast chargers, which deliver the electric to the car much quicker, which, by the way, also has a negative effect on the batteries. So I hope people know that batteries are getting damaged from some of this. They're really, what I have read so far regarding these fast chargers is they do not have to be that bright. So unless the company has told you something else, the major reason why they make them that bright is protection from vandalism, safety for people using these chargers, especially in more areas where it's a little more desolate, and primarily so that they're easier to find. And most electric car people do not pretty much roam around looking for EV chargers in that manner. Most of them use apps that are out there. So perhaps a little later on, Tony, you can give me some update on whether or not you spoke to the manufacturer and what could be done to mitigate this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
I read a recent notice given out to the Oak Ridge Water District residents based on some of the information given out by Town Supervisor Antonio Gonsalves at a perfectly timed pre-election annual meeting, which resulted in residents being told the water was safe to drink. It is not, and continues to test high. In fact, the Westchester Health Department themselves contacted us regarding my mom's emergency hospitalization this year, asking us what country my mother had traveled to because the bacteria that was found in her was found only in dirty, unsafe drinking water. And that's a fact. Councilman Welsh, the environmentalist, you for the first time in 3.5 years mumbled something about, yes, we should open up a dialogue when Martha Goodman came and spoke about the water. I know, there's no money in it for you, but perhaps the Oak Ridge residents and surrounding area can get involved in this class action lawsuit and be made whole. And I also, Martha, found out about it from the newspaper and not the board. I know it's not your thing, Councilman Welsh. You made that clear 3 days after Israel was mercilessly attacked, where there are still American hostages being held in your polling of the board, you stated. I know there's a lot of anger, but the people in Gaza don't have electricity. Councilwoman Shaw, you have met my mother. You know they can't drink their water, but somehow you felt it kind to write a letter supporting your 3 fellow board members, praising them for their efforts for a condition that still exists. Councilman Welsh has been on the board for 16 plus years. I believe Town Supervisor Antonio Gonsalves, 6 plus years, and it goes on. While trying to understand why, and especially because you are constantly preaching about being kind, I found a quote from you on July 13th, 2021 in the Journal News over the Shady Land deal. We, the people, corrected, not the board. And you stated, Republicans were merely looking for an edge during political season. During an election year, people are looking to stir up trouble. Is that what you think I've been doing for almost 4 years, stirring up trouble? Not sounding very kind. The very same recent Republican candidates who raised issues that I am certain at least Town Supervisor Antonio Gonsalves is grateful for, less time getting tonight's agenda together. You will forgive me, but I would far rather have real, transparent, and honest than kind. For what I have learned here in almost 4 years of not missing a meeting is when someone needs to preach kindness, keep your eyes wide open. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Simone.
Thank you.
Someone has to help me with this name. I'm asking Tim if. I'm echoing in here. Timmy? Timmy
Hello.
Parsons?
Hello. This is Timmy Parsons, and we have 2 other people with me.
Susie Andrews.
And Peter Cipriano. Congratulations to you all. We're just going to read a quick letter. Our comments are relating to the solar panel carports or solar panel shade structures proposed for Honor True Farm. We support the use of solar power as green energy in town and congratulate our representatives for getting grant money for it.
There is, however, an overriding issue with constructing solar panels at Honor True Farm. The farm was a gift to the town from Alice Poor, a very generous resident. We have been volunteering on the grounds of Honor True Farm Park for decades and know the property well. In fact, I knew Alice Poor as a neighbor and a friend who was involved in many civic organizations. She loved this town and very generously left her beloved farm property to the residents of Lewisboro with specific criteria.
Her deed clearly states the premises converted here under shall always be for the sole use of the same as a public park and recreation area to be known as Honor True Farm, and that no new construction shall be made in respect to said premises except for public recreational facilities such as swimming pools, tennis courts, baseball fields, playing fields, picnic areas, and facilities of like kind incidental thereto, in witness whereof the party of the first part and the party of the second part have each duly executed this deed on the day and the year first above written.
With alternative sites available, Honor True Farm is clearly not the location to construct solar panel carports or solar panel shade structures. We are bound to honor the deed and Alice Poor's gift by not permitting this construction at Honor True Farm Park. Thank you.
Just can respond. Just
Move it to Poland.
yeah.
Thank you. All three. Now I'm asking Jim O'Connor to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. This is Jim O'Connor, Jimbo from Vista. I just have a couple of comments. One, I want to start with a quote. It's by one of my favorite people, Albert Einstein. He once said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think this is it just reminds me of the board and how there is no change at all. But that's the results of elections. But my biggest concern is the upcoming Christmas season. And I know this town has a policy where they call the Christmas tree a Christmas bush or a holiday tree. And that just concerns me because, just an example, farmers, they grow Christmas trees. Nurseries sell Christmas trees. Christian churches and houses of worship decorate Christmas trees. My Jewish friends and neighbors buy and decorate Christmas trees. For millions of Christians, I think the Christmas tree represents a symbol of a special time of the year celebrating the birth of our Savior. And I think that by demeaning it and calling it a holiday tree, it's like I would not call a beautiful Jewish religious symbol, the menorah, a holiday candle. So I just hope that we stop this woke, progressive, secular attacks on Christianity, and we get back to calling it a Christmas tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I'm inviting Beth iPhone, if you could state your full name, please.
Hi, thank you. It's Beth Uretsky. I apologize for my full name not being on listed. It is Beth Uretsky. I was a resident of Cross River. I am now a resident of Golden's Bridge. To echo, I wasn't even going to speak tonight. And first of all, congratulations to those that won the election. I hope that with the newly awarded elections that we can now move together and make changes for the coming term. To echo Jimbo's comment, I am Jewish. My husband and I celebrate with our family Hanukkah. I don't know about that many Jewish people unless, you know, there's a mixed marriage, buying Hanukkah bushes and decorating them. But look, to each his own, and that's what, you know, we're all allowed to do here in America. To kind of build on what he just said, prior to COVID, Barbara Mangione and I started working with Recreation. We were hoping to have a Winter Wonderland celebration, bringing together unity back to this community. That was the theme. And Dana at the time for Recreation was all on board with that. The board was having some say, and we were going to work together to bring unity back into the community. Once again, we are seeing a division of this community. We were so grateful as of being the Jewish faith to have a menorah. Thank you, Tony. You know, and starting that celebration going, but not at the cost of those celebrating Christmas to now not have a Christmas tree lighting. It should not be one versus the other. And I still do not understand why we can't have one celebration somewhere in the month of December where everybody can be celebrated that same day and have one unified event for everyone. At the time, Mary Shaw mentioned that she wanted to include Diwali. We turned around and we said, great, let's include Diwali. Please volunteer, because I personally do not know how to celebrate Diwali. I would love to learn. So I would really hope that while 2023 is kind of now a little too late to change the plans, I'm hoping that things can be changed for 2024 and we could start bringing unity into the community once again. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Beth. And that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Okay, next, communications. I don't have anything for communications tonight. So moving on to the consent agenda, I'd like to motion approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and the building and police department reports.
Andrew Aranda, second.
The discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move to old business. So the first item is to set a meeting date for the comprehensive plan workshop, and basically this is for. We had agreed to have a hybrid meeting for the next workshop sometime in January. And this is just a discussion of determined from the board if there's a preference as to whether we do this on a weekend, on a weeknight, and then get back to the steering committee with some potential dates.
So what's the scope of that meeting that we're looking at?
It's the workshop that we had approved a couple of meetings back. Yeah,
It's basically to go through the draft highlights. Is that correct?
this is a public workshop.
Right.
Yeah.
But using the draft.
I
as-
believe so.
as
That's
the
what, yeah,
Framework for that.
yes.
That's what I was getting at.
That's-
Yeah. Yeah. All right,
So,
well,
so I told Katie I would bring this up with the board, and then we don't have to make a decision now. But she is wanting to know from us and get a consensus as to when this workshop should be held. Sometime in January.
My thoughts are either on a Sunday early evening or on a Monday that is unlimited here.
Like a Monday evening.
Correct.
Okay. And it will be at the townhouse, by the way, so. Yeah, I agree on having it on a weekday evening, so Monday evening would work for me.
you said it will be at the time.
It will be, yes.
Okay, we don't have
So
any suspicion that we'll run out of room here.
Well, if we have a hybrid meeting.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
that's, yeah,
If we went over there to the library.
we can do that, but since we're doing Zoom, we wanted to have our setup here. That's the only, I think that was the main reason, the main drive for having it here.
Maybe, yeah, I mean, I think they can do that there too, but we could just leave that as an open question for now, I guess.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
There are
So,
some people in the room who could address.
answer that question.
I think actually for a hybrid meeting, I think you're better, now that you've added all of this, I think it's a better option.
Okay,
We could do it if you thought that we were gonna have too many people for this.
right,
I can't recall. Are we supposed to have workstations? Do you remember? Are we going workstations or is it mostly just an all-in participation with the draft?
I haven't been. engaged,
yeah, I don't know that
so
we've
I'd
seen the
look to you
script
guys.
for it, but I
Yeah.
imagine, I mean, it's a hearing, so we're gonna let people, the consultant will undoubtedly sort of go through the highlights.
I don't know if Katie's
then-
on, maybe, Janet, is Katie McGinn? Maybe she can give us
It's not a
a,
hearing, it's a workshop.
okay, well, we don't have to spend too much time on it now,
Point.
but let's, determine what exactly.
So that was my thoughts, either on late on a Sunday, so that business owners could be here, or on a Monday evening when we do not have a town board meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, either of those sounds fine.
Okay. So we'll follow up with Katie and
Yeah.
give her those two options, and then we have to look at, because we also need resources on our end if we're gonna do the hybrid. So we're gonna need someone from the maintenance and IT department.
Now, there's also some back and forth about the second batch of zoning.
The reviews, yes.
The
Mhm.
last batch, didn't we have the consultant come in and kind of, did we not? Am I
No.
imagining that?
Yes.
Yeah,
But no,
No,
that
we
was,
had-
no, that was the actual steering meeting, sorry.
yeah,
that was-
yeah.
Yes.
So now they're waiting for the next set
Okay.
of reviews on the zoning, proposed zoning.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
I
Which-
need more time.
She extended it to the 17th. So
Yeah,
we have-
you're not the only one who needed more time.
Yes, so that's good.
But yeah, please do make sure you look at that stuff and.
Yeah.
And then
There's
provide
some
any feedback.
significant things.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll more to come on that. The next discussion is preliminary budget. So we have the tentative budget, which was delivered to the town clerk. It's at the tax cap. But what we did to do that is we removed the $450,000 from paving, and the proposal was, the recommendation was to bond for that amount, if we want to keep that that in the paving.
The recommendation.
The recommendation, yes. Right, that was a recommendation from Nisha, and I agreed with that as well, so. So right now, we have until the 27th, which is the public hearing. to make any further changes to the budget. But right now, the way it is, it's at the tax cap. And I think if we want to maintain the $450,000 in addition for paving, which I think we should potentially bond for it.
So what are just my recollection is there was a 180 line and then the chips. Right, do we still have that in?
Yeah, that's still in there.
So
Yes.
the 180 plus, I'm going from memory, to 200, is that what it was? 180.
I'd have to look it up.
Oh, do you want to watch it?
Yeah, for highway, Nisha, I think that was 180 for.
I just shared one. She need a microphone.
Yeah, you're probably gonna need a microphone.
Can you
Or
share your
use
mic?
Greg's.
He'd be more than happy to give.
A recollection of there were three components. There was the budgeted line plus the chips line plus.
Here it is. It was the road resurfacing line, 180,000, and then 250,000 for the chips.
So I'm sharing my screen. Is it?
We can't see it here though, but the folks here.
So
We'd have to
the
plug
paving
in.
line was 450 requested, 450 is what we are planning to bond
So,
or ban.
so for just to compare apples to apples, for last year's adopted budget. So what we're talking about is 250, and this year we're talking about 250 and 180, 430 and 450, so that's 880. What was adopted for last year?
I'm sorry, the adopted for last year was 180
180, yes.
plus 250.
Correct.
So it's 4.
And then the requested for this year was 500
Okay,
instead of the 180
so it's
and 300 for chips.
okay, so the
And
so the
so-
450 is the differential.
So we stayed at, we basically, we kept the chips at 300,000 and the road resurfacing at 50,000. And we pulled the 450 out with the
Well, what was
recommendation
it
of bond.
last year? 450 is how much more than what we?
Last year was 180.
Okay.
And then the requested for that same line is 500.
So what about the chip? There was chips, was this different?
Chips was 250 and the requested was 300.
For this year.
Kept that at 300 for this year.
All right, so that means, to summarize, that we're actually losing ground in terms of what we've got in the budget. I mean, we're going from 180 to 50 essentially in the non-chips
Can you share?
side of things.
In the budget.
Yes.
So, right, because we're gonna, okay, so what we would like to do in a perfect world is to look at the CHIPS money as a bonus over and above what we, in my perfect world, over and above what we would
Yes.
typically do, what we would typically budget for road resurfacing and paving. So what, in order to get where we need to be, we're gonna take that requested amount out and hopefully all of us agree to bond for it at the beginning or the first quarter of next year. And my understanding is that at the time that those bonds would be issued, there would be other debt service coming off.
Yes,
That would
There is- yeah.
basically
Mhm.
yes.
equivocate, it wouldn't, the taxpayer wouldn't feel any significant increase because we would be having some debt service come off.
Right.
So we'd be replacing it. So that is my understanding. And then, we'd like to look at the chips as an added bonus, a little bit more of a buffer for the extra work that we may be able to get done. That's how I look. I know you're not a fan of bonding for roads.
Yeah.
I am.
But just to
So-
summarize, in terms of the total allocation for roads, it would be $900,000, including the bonded, which we
Need to do.
haven't done
We need
in
to
a
do.
while.
Right, so as opposed to last year, was we were at the 180
Plus
plus
250.
250. Right,
Which barely
430,
scratches.
which is
the
I'm just to make sure.
Yep.
So 430 was the all-in last year versus 900, 450, which is bond that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, my point, which I brought up in polling on 2 or 3 meetings ago, is that we have memory serves somewhere around 550,000 in ARPA funds remaining, somewhere in that ballpark, but
I think 535,
okay,
somewhere around there, close.
okay, around, pretty close. Yeah, so again, I think we should put in, as I said, then 300 or maybe even a little bit more from the ARPA for the roads. I mean, it's infrastructure. This is for infrastructure. We wouldn't have to borrow it. We have the money in the bank. And we should, take the opportunity to utilize that money that we have. So that's money we have on it.
So to bring it around, we all seem to have very strong opinions on what that ARPA money should be allocated towards. We've discussed numerous times the wells and water issues and the town park with the pool and the wells there. I've heard discussions about using that money for pickleball courts. Now I'm hearing an idea to use it instead of bonding for roads. And I believe there are a few more ideas that were thrown around. I again think it would be a really good idea if we had maybe a work session just to talk about these ideas. And because we do have to allocate this money by 2024, right? And it's not that any
End
of
of
these
2024, December 2024.
December
I'm in
2024,
agreement with
we
you.
really need
No,
to
we
hash
will.
this out,
We'll have-
right?
Yeah.
Because they're all really good ideas, but I think we need to prioritize them.
Some of the-
I want to make sure I understand the scope of what you're talking about. Prioritize as far as what the ARPA should money should go for.
Allocation of the ARPA money. Where should it be spent, right? It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to use money that we don't have to borrow, right? And, we don't have to work on a grant or anything. It's there. So we need to prioritize and look at the projects that might not otherwise be able to get funding in some other way, or that are really at a state or condition where if we don't do something soon, they're going to deteriorate to the point where it's almost unaffordable to repair.
Because, right, we've also put some money from ARPA towards pool things that were priority already. We've already allocated that. Yeah.
50,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so roads for me are an operating expense, even though, yes, on an accounting basis, you can call them a capital expense. So I would agree with Andrea that the ARPA funds should be used on some of the capital things that we've talked about, rather than essentially plugging a hole in the budget, a one-time plug. And for me, the bonding is the same problem. Essentially, you're kind of just kicking the ball down the road and you have to pay it back later, rather than actually fixing the hole in your budget. So I'm not saying we have to get there, right away, but to actually lose ground this year, I think we shouldn't be doing that.
I'm not saying we should lose ground. I'm saying
No, the proposal to take the 450,000 out and bond for it all is losing ground, because we're
right. So that's right. I mean, I understand. So if I understand your position on this for a lot of years is that we shouldn't take it from ARPA. We shouldn't bond for it. We should have, I guess, take the road life expectancy, the amount, and we should have a very large tax increase to pay for it. It's essentially what your position is.
We have to increase that budget line. So ultimately, yes, the taxpayers pay for everything that we do. So that would have to happen. There's no magic to it.
No, I'm not saying there is, but I'm just clarifying what your position is, that we should increase the taxes sufficiently.
Yeah, we've said for years, we're gonna bring it along, and not necessarily make all of that increase in that one moment there, but we've sort of done that, and then backed up a little bit, done that, and you can see we only got $180,000 in there today, so we're not very far along. So backing that down to 50 to me is not.
No, I know the stuff that you don't advocate. I get that. So essentially, your position is that based upon the road life expectancy, which we're talking about 12 or 15 years, and what we need to do, I think would be probably 700,000 or 800,000 per year at least, I would think. So, which equates to a 10 or 11% tax increase each year, as far as we can see to that. That's your position essentially.
So if we had 180 in the sort of cash budget for roads last year, then maybe it should be 230 this year. So we are making some headway. I'm not saying, but, you know, I love to make it all up at once. That's, you know, not gonna be popular, so we can scratch our way back and make it a little less painful, but something rather than,
Well, if you,
certainly don't wanna go backwards.
if, just to give you an idea what the, the impact is to taxes, if you put the 450 back into the budget, the tax rate increase would be just over 8%.
So here's, so my interpretation of what Dan's trying to say is something that I did also speak about, which was it's a line in the budget that we need to start building upon. And we don't necessarily have to build upon it all at once. Like it's not, I don't think Dan is necessarily saying that we need to put the full 450 back in that line item, but that we shouldn't go backwards. Like if we were at 180 last year, we should at least increase it somewhat. And although he wouldn't agree with bonding for any of it, then the remainder could be bonded for at the beginning of next year. But that instead of depleting that line, right, instead of you know, going backwards and reducing that line, we should increase it somewhat, because every year we should be building upon it. Maybe not to the extent where we're, you know, having a 10 or 12% tax increase, but at least something that we can build on over time. You know, we have to look at things more as like a 5 or 10 year plan. We can't just be, you know, it's hard when we're in budget season to really, you know, we're stuck in this little what's stuck over the tax cap kind of mentality. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to breaking the tax cap slightly in order to meet that goal, but not, you know, I'm not looking at 10 or 12%. But if we had to go to 3%, it wouldn't, to me, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So a compromise wherein that line is increased somewhat, and then the remainder be bonded is a compromise, so that we continue in that forward motion of getting that line where ultimately someday it needs to be. And obviously, this board, I'm sure we would love to solve that problem all at once, but it's going to be impossible to do. But at least we can continue to aim for that and hope that future boards do the same thing and build upon it. So at some future date, maybe we won't have to bond.
But if you're accepting the premise, which it may be outdated as far as Cornell study kind of premise, and what the road life expectancy is, and the amount, and doing the math and what it's supposed to take in order to keep up, the ultimate would be to have enough money that the roads are being replaced and consistent with what the road life expectancy is. What you're talking about, adding a little bit more, is fine, but it doesn't do that if we're accepting the premise of what the Cornell study is and how it's supposed to take care of the roads. It's just not doing
No,
it. We are effectively falling for the vehicle.
No, we're doing both.
Amount.
We want the 450. We're saying put a little bit more on the line item in the budget, and the remainder be bonded at the beginning of next year. We're not saying no 450. We're not saying only 200,000. We're saying 450, just split it up a little bit where we're still increasing the line item in the budget, and then the remainder is bonded. And then in next year's budget, we increase the line item a little more, and then we are maybe bonding a little less or an equivalent amount, just so that we get the line item over time to grow, so that we are eventually in a position where we're borrowing less, because now we've kind of shifted where the money's coming from. Does that make sense?
And during that process of adjusting how the money is, the source of the money, will also be catching up to maybe even getting ahead of the requirements of the Cornell study, where we do more than 9 miles a year.
Well, the Cornell study was, you review all the roads, and then the key to it is that you have different gradations of, right? So the hope is to actually have to do less ultimately, because you're doing it more efficiently.
And I was gonna say to that point, if we do allocate 900,000, putting aside where it's coming from, if you do allocate the 900,000 next year to roads, you're gonna put a nice dent in terms of repairing roads. And then maybe for the subsequent, for the 25 budget, we then consider increasing our budget line, you know, by say, I don't know, 150,000, and do so in subsequent years.
And next
keep
year
that trend going.
We won't have the huge increase in the budget just due to the salaries, because we, you know, have settled all of our contracts, et cetera. So we won't have those increases there. we'll have a little bit more flexibility.
Correct, so we
to
have
do
a little
that.
more room next year, 2025.
It's-
Because we're not gonna, yeah, we don't
It's a
have that.
long-term goal. We're not, this isn't gonna be solved in the next 2 to 4 years. But it's something, it's something we have to look at the big picture and move towards that goal
And to the list that you mentioned about these other projects, the pickleball, the pool, although we're putting some money into that, but there's more that needs
all
to be
worthy
done.
projects, yeah.
Those are in Nicole's capital budget
Yes.
request, so we still have to figure out what we're gonna do with that before we bond, and I think it's by January, February, we need to know.
By January 1st or 2nd.
Yeah, we need to know what, so when we do the bond issuance, you know what that amount.
And I don't like to put any salt in the wounds, but as of today, I think the bond that was on the ballot is still failed by 30 or some odd
37.
votes. And if any of my other board members here are considering a potential bond for that similar purpose, that's also something that's gonna have to be considered by January 1st as well in that number.
Yes.
And Nisha worked that out. She sent to the board the spreadsheet that basically shows that with the declining that
The
debt
combined
service.
payment per year has been from 1.2 to 1. Now we are again going back to
Below 1 million.
1.2 for the whole year.
So worst case scenario, if you borrow the full amount, which we
Yes.
wouldn't be doing
Mhm.
in 24 of that potential bond. The debt service on that would hit in 2025.
Correct.
So that service would be based on the amount that we borrow for engineering plans, designs, et cetera.
Yeah.
To get the
Although I
bonus.
very much appreciate the beautiful color coding of that report and everything, I am still at a loss to fully comprehend.
You gotta
So
sit that-
that's my plan. I was just gonna say, I need to sit down and fully understand it. I tried my best and I was just like, no.
But that does include, it included the 450 for paving.
Yes,
One of
it
the
included
scenarios.
one of the truck, it included 450 for the paving, and the
Mhm.
third one was 2.1 million for the sidewalk. But not borrowing complete 2.1, 700,000 borrowing for the first year and the rest in the second year. And for the trucks, it was one truck next year and the other truck next to next year.
Right, but the orders have to be put in long in advance because
Yes.
if I remember correctly
Yes.
from
Well,
Mr. Rippinger.
yeah, the order
it's-
was already
yes.
put in.
He's already, he already put the order for,
Both.
so,
Two trucks.
So the,
but, we have time if we decide we need the second one, we could. Yeah.
No, I understand.
well, I still think we should use part of that for the ARPA, but okay, assuming then 450 bonding, so we do kickstart it a bit. Then maybe with the new highway superintendent, we do an updated, we can do during 2024, an updated assessment. One of the things that I never actually know in TV, that roads are evaluated as far as, whatever the grading is, very good, okay, whatever. If we had an updated inventory, which actually incorporates the roads that have been taken care of over the past number of years as part of the schedule, and see exactly where we are, then we should, that's why I said, if we're accepting the premise behind the point L, may be out of date and not accurately reflect what the conditions of the roads are now. So if we're doing this as a step for this year, okay, then what we should do is have, with the new highway superintendent, we should have an updated assessment and evaluation, essentially grading our roads in town and identifying those roads, even coming up with a nice, color
No,
chart.
I think that's a good idea. I think because we have that information of what was paved, last year and the year before. So we can put that into a
Right, and
chart,
there's been
table.
there's been a schedule
with-
for the last
yeah.
several years, so we bring that current and we see maybe we've closed the gap more than we actually believe, and there's X number of roads are in whatever it is, good, acceptable, whatever it is,
We-
and we see where we're at.
Have to take into consideration the fact that the paving that we have been doing has not been grinding down the pavement underneath. It's been just layering on top. And we have to start looking at the roads and determining which ones need to be grinded down before they're repaved. Because I know there are a number of people, including myself, that as a result of that type of paving, it caused an adverse effect onto my property, causing drainage issues. That then myself and the two people that I share a driveway with had to take on the personal financial burden of remedying. And we don't want to do that to our residents if we don't have to, but that means it costs a little bit more to do the appropriate paving in certain.
Well, there's also the safety aspect as well for people who walk or bicycle.
Yes,
On the side of the road as well, because if it's just layered up, then
it's a huge drop off.
it's a risk.
But also, since you brought up our incoming highway superintendent, I know. I know, Nisha. So when we were looking at the budget, we talked about decreasing the gap between our non-union employees and the competitive salaries throughout the county. And although Mr. Ripperger didn't outwardly request an increase in the highway superintendent's salary, there was a question mark on his notes that he gave to us. And, you know, my suggestion is that we also raise that salary by 4%, which Nisha, because she's the numbers person, kindly provided to me. And I believe the increase in his salary would approximately be $4,500.
887.
Right. So my
Like a
thought
net-
was,
Total increase, 4,539 for the salary and
Yes.
social security and Medicaid extra. So 4,887 would be the impact.
would
on
be the
budget.
impact. And if we could also, you know, if we could find some place to do that, and I know, you know, he hasn't taken off in the yes, and he's an elected official, but it wouldn't, you know, precedent has shown that prior boards have voted to increase the salary of the supervisor before the new supervisor took office while they were still running. And so, you know, it has been done, and I think that it's rather odd that that's not odd, just kind of quirky that that's the only salary that hasn't been increased in this budget.
Yeah, but that's the
Actually, that
standard.
wasn't done for Peter Rippinger. I actually asked him
What?
in terms of getting a raise before he started.
No, but it was done, a prior supervisor, Mr. Parsons, voted to increase the salary of the town supervisor prior to the new supervisor being elected and taking office. And I don't think anybody jumped up and down about that increase. And it's not that it hasn't been done before. And under the circumstances of this particular budget, with all the other salary lines being increased by 4%, it just seems that that one should also be increased 4%, competitively speaking, although it's an elected position, it has been done in the past. And that's just my position on it. And since it's approximately $4,500, it's not significant. That's just my
I'm
position
just
on it.
not, still not understanding the premise, just that it's in line. I mean, you said that the highway superintendent did not outwardly requested, he didn't.
He didn't put it in his budget. He had a
So he
question mark.
didn't, so he didn't ask
He
for
had
it.
a question mark next to it.
So it wasn't a request then.
He did not, but I had a question about that, why he had a question mark, but it doesn't matter. It's my suggestion, whether Mr. Rippinger requested it or not, he is retired and it wouldn't be his salary. It would be the salary of the new highway superintendent.
Well, I still don't, so this is somebody who ran for a position at a particular salary.
Yes.
And who's this request coming from then?
Me,
Based upon a request from just,
based on an overall analysis of the budget and the fact that all these other employees didn't handwrite letters to us asking for their non-union positions to go up by 4%.
No, but they've
It
been
was a
employees.
number,
They
it
were-
was an,
Yeah, but there were employees
there was a
already.
number
It's part of
that
the merit.
Nisha, based on analysis, came up with to bring those positions to a more competitive rate in comparison to similar positions throughout the county. That one was not done. And again, our prior town supervisor presented and requested an increase in the town supervisor's salary, although he was not running again for the newly elected and incoming supervisor, and no one objected to that. It's the same thing. Someone was running for an elected position. Tony was running for an elected position. They knew what the salary was when they threw their hat in the ring to run for that job. They didn't request a salary increase. They didn't expect a salary increase, but the town board thought it was in the best interest in order to bring, I would assume, in order to bring that salary up a little bit to be a little bit more competitive, because it's a job that, unless you're retired or you're work from home, doesn't attract many people to want to do it. But the supervisor at that time and the town board thought it was in the best interest to vote to increase that salary.
Just the difference is this is somebody that is new to the town. Right, doesn't have any background and he was offered, this is what the position pays.
That's correct,
And now you're
but
looking
he
to-
does have background because he has a lot of time and experience working in Yorktown highways, very familiar. Similarly to someone who served on the town board as a councilman and then moved into the role of supervisor, although they didn't have any experience of running a town, they had experience sitting on the town board and learning from that experience so they could apply that to when they were elected to that position. It's the same thing to me. So I'm just saying to across the board, because the analysis was done that 4% was a good number to raise all non-union employees to, that it should go across the board. It's the only position that didn't get a raise in the budget.
So what's the difference for you? Because I'm just trying to reconcile your position. So when we had the discussion about the chief of staff, which was about $4,500, which we were against, and this is the same $4,500 going into a budget.
That's a stipend for work that was already included in the job description, in my opinion.
Okay, well.
And that was only my opinion because the three of you decided it.
Yeah, so that if we did that, and I guess we'll put it for a vote, that then we need to get that money from somewhere.
That's correct.
Okay.
So when I sit down with Nisha, I will do that because I have some ideas. It doesn't all need to come from the same place. And I want to see what that is. And I also asked Nisha how much that would break the tax cap by, which, I don't know if you emailed me back tonight, but I didn't have time to check my email. So I'm gonna sit down. I'm giving you my ideas because we're having this discussion. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where we're gonna end up by the time the final budget is presented, but I do plan on sitting down with Nisha and trying to see if we can.
Well, just note, if part of this was about, parity around the county and everything, that position is already over $10,000 more than the supervisor position. So you'd be sort of increasing that gap. Not that they're in the same position or anything, but.
Do we get any communications from the incoming superintendent about this?
I have not.
I've had conversations with him because I reached out to him about it, but.
So he hasn't said anything to the board requesting this, right?
Well, he wasn't in the position necessarily. That wouldn't have been a great thing to do, to come in and say, oh, by the way, I'd really like you to raise my salary. He came in and gave comments about the job itself, but not until that was before we were talking about the raises. But no, I mean, look, he's a young man with a young family who lives in town and intends on staying here. So, I would seriously doubt that he would say, absolutely not. I don't need a raise. But he'll take the job no matter what, I'm sure. I'm just advocating.
Well, he got elected to the position. I'm presuming he's good to go. He was on the ballot and got cross-endorsed. So I presume he's taking it. So I think
obviously, but I'm just saying, if every other position in the budget got a 4% raise except that one. So I'm suggesting that one also be raised by 4%. That's it. There's no secret.
Well, we can take a vote on it now and just, I'd rather not prolong this discussion.
You could speak with.
Why don't we
John.
Do a little bit more investigating and then.
Where it's coming from?
Yeah, I don't want to vote on it right now. I don't.
Well, I'm okay to vote for it if you want to call it.
Okay.
If you, it's better.
He's gonna call it.
Yeah, and I'll, if you can call for a vote, I'll second the motion for a vote.
I don't understand why you just won't let me sit down with Nisha and see if I can come up with a way to work it out. What's the problem with that?
Well, to work it out, you need to take it out of another line item in the budget.
Right.
So what line items were you considering?
I don't know, because I'm trying to sit down and analyze the budget. These are the few questions I had for Nisha. There's some other things about the debt service, so I figured when I sit down with her, then I'll just cover everything and see if I can find some place to pull it from.
Except, yeah, I don't, my position is I don't accept the premise based upon what I've heard, but that's my position.
I would agree with Rich on that.
So you want to call it? Want to call for a vote? Second for the vote.
So, Greg, is this a motion?
Yeah, so one of the things you need to do tonight. One of the things you need to do tonight is actually adopt the preliminary.
Correct.
So I don't know if there's other changes to the tentative that you're going to consider before you adopt the preliminary.
Well, let me ask you about that. So the preliminary doesn't have to be adopted until before public hearing, which is the 27th. We should ideally, I mean.
You should do it tonight.
Do it tonight?
I think, yes, because you're giving a notice.
Okay.
Starting next week.
But then we have an option to make any adjustments before the adopted, so, yeah.
Of course, yeah, between the preliminary and final, you do. So my thought is if this is the only thing, a lot of times boards adopt the tentative as preliminary and do all their changes between preliminary and final. But if this is the only change that you're contemplating at the moment to the tentative, then you can vote the tentative as preliminary with this modification and see if it.
Or without the modification.
I'm not, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have time to make changes. if
You can make wholesale changes between the preliminary and final.
This is not a change that have to be made or not be made this evening, and neither is how we're gonna allocate, how we want to do the 900,000 for the roads. We still have to decide that. So, just because, I suggested it, do we have to squash it like a bug? Why can't we just open it for discussion? At the end of the day, if I can't figure it out, or if I figured out and the four of you aren't in agreement, there's no harm, no foul.
Right.
But, does it hurt to listen if I come up with an idea?
No,
That's not the issue. That's not the issue. I mean, the issue is a threshold issue, as you articulated. So, I mean, this is somebody who was elected at a salary, and the outgoing highway superintendent didn't make a request for an increase, and the incoming, either as citizen or highway superintendent-elect, hasn't made a written request for it.
Rich,
So
I'm trying to do this as politely and professionally as possible, especially, but here's the deal. When Tony ran to be our next supervisor, he didn't ask for a salary increase. He didn't come to a meeting and ask Peter Parsons to put an increase in the budget, right? He knew what the salary was, and he decided he was gonna run for supervisor anyway, right?
That's true with anybody that came on the board, by the way.
And that's, no, but I'm using as an example. I didn't ask for a salary increase, but it was my understanding that the town board salaries also got increased when I was running. I didn't come and request a salary increase. Okay, and neither has John Winter. Why would he, as someone who's running for office? Be that as it may, the town board at the time decided it was in the best interest of the town to vote to increase the salary of the town board members and the salary of the supervisor, two of which were going to be newly elected town councilmen, and one of which was going to be a new supervisor. None of those people who were running for office asked for an increase in salary. Council members. None of the people who are running for office asked for an increase in the salary that they may or may not have been elected to. It's the same situation. John didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. You didn't ask for it. Tony didn't ask for it. But the town board that was sitting at the time thought it was in the best interest of the town to increase those salaries, and they did. So it's the same exact thing.
So
there's just, and Jan brought it to my attention. Okay, pursuant to town law 108, you have to advertise this salary. It's the town supervisor, town clerk, and the elected highway superintendent, the board members all have to be advertised. What's the notice? Before the preliminary.
Before the preliminary.
And you can't increase it. Okay, without without local law subject to a permissive. So if you're contemplating it, you should adopt the preliminary with the higher number, and then you can go down. But you will not be able to go up after the public hearing on any of those salaries without the local law.
So it's, say again, just list the salaries that need to be public.
Supervisor, town board, town clerk, elected town clerk, elected highway superintendent. So those four positions, right?
And that notice has to go in this Friday.
With the preliminary budget notice. So
that makes a distinction between this and the highway budget.
This, you have to resolve tonight, at least go to the higher salary, and then you can reduce if you don't want, but you won't be able to increase it without legislating afterwards.
Understood.
Okay.
Unless we vote on it now.
Well, that's what he's
saying.
Yeah.
If you select the higher salary tonight, then you can always go back. Okay,
That's
if the
that's
budget doesn't,
distinction he's making.
but
because
yeah,
I
you
didn't
can't go up
understand
without
that
legislating.
distinction.
Right.
A very cumbersome way to go about it.
Right, okay,
So, okay.
I forgot about that part.
Or we could just, but we could leave the budget, the tentative as it is. And make a decision that that's the salary that that's gonna be adopted.
100%. I
Yeah.
just want you to know the consequences if you
Yeah.
adopt, whatever you adopt as a preliminary, with
Right.
those 4 position salaries.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
That's correct. And Janice
So-
is saying it has to be by Friday.
I have to get the notice in by tomorrow at 5 o'clock
Right.
for you.
And the preliminary budget, so we have to, we have to adopt the preliminary budget tonight.
That's
I would say yes, the notice has got to go in tomorrow, so you have to have adopted it.
Because we need the 2 weeks.
In 5 days.
5 days.
But your publication schedule is such that you won't get.
We won't get 5 days
You won't get,
if we wait.
if you waited till.
To the next
Got it,
meeting.
yeah.
We can get
Okay.
5 days
Okay,
before the actual hearing.
right.
Unless you want to be kicking out the December 4th. So I'm not suggesting that, but you do have that window. I know, what am I saying?
13.
13, oh yeah, that's right.
Whatever the 6th, okay, I think your public hearing is by the 10th, so you theoretically could do that also if you didn't want to make a determination tonight.
Right,
You've already said, 27,
right,
or do it tonight, with whatever the
So-
determination is.
yeah.
I mean, I hear you, Andrea. I just feel like part of, what was going on with the supervisor salary was at a really stupid level for a long time, and it was, it had to catch up. The highway salary superintendent salary as it sits now, of course, relative to the county, like all the salaries, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. It's not something that's sort of offensive as an offering or anything. So I'm not moved to sort of, change that at this point.
So I'm okay with adopting the tentative budget as it is as a preliminary.
It's just, I don't even know if you have to make the next year's budget.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, John, if you're listening out there.
We love you, John. Just
So, motion to adopt the tentative budget as the preliminary.
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that's that. Okay, next we have new business. So, the next item is the intermunicipality agreement with the county to provide mobile radios to patrol vehicles and authorizing a supervisor to sign. So the chief is here. He's going to talk a little bit about this, but let me just give a synopsis of what this is about. So there's an IMA between the county and the town of Lewisboro from 2020. This is I said it before.
Intermunicipal agreement.
Intermunicipality agreement.
Okay.
And this is a new IMA because the county has a new tri-band radio system. And they received additional funding from the state to provide municipalities with this tri-band radio system, which was part of the evolution and the migration of the radios that the chief and I and others have been talking about, including folks on the Antenna Advisory Board committee for some time. This tri-band system allows, which is something that was very important to me, which is to have interoperability between agencies, fire departments, police department, LVAC, Westchester County, and state, although the chief can explain it better, but state is in their own.
Does that mean they can?
I'll try.
That means they can talk to each other? Is that what
They can all-
interoperability?
Exactly,
Yes.
yes. And these are radios for, so the chief has been doing some testing with a couple different Motorola system and a L3 Harris system for about a year now. And we've settled on the decision made by the chief is to go with L3 Harris. We have a proposal for that, and with this system, we will have all the radios going to be upgraded to this tri-band system. But before we pull the trigger on it, there's a grant that the chief came across that he applied for, which we'll be finding out about sometime this month, hopefully.
Any day now. They said November 12th,
Right.
give or take.
But
So-
clarify for me, I scanned it quickly. It says something about the county providing the equipment.
Correct.
So that was a
Yeah,
big
that-
thing
I mean, this has been going on for years now. I've heard the county supplying us radios for probably about 3 to 4 years. So that's where the whole stalemate was. I didn't want to spend $500,000 on radios. And then a week later, all of a sudden, the county provides us with radios. They're pretty bad for me. And yeah, I mean, and that's usually how it works. I just got this email randomly. I didn't know anything about them providing these radios. I did a survey, and then a year later, here it is. I don't know how many radios I'm going to get. They asked how many police vehicles we have. And, I told them we have the 8 vehicles. So hopefully they'll provide me with 8 radios for those vehicles, because they are pretty expensive, about, I would say, anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000. Now Motorola, like Tony was saying, the supervisor, Motorola is almost a year out for equipment. So that doesn't really do us any good. L3 Harris, very comparable with Motorola. And I'm also getting the MTA's pricing on that, which is actually better than New York State did.
L3 Harris is the manufacturer.
That's a manufacturer, yes.
And
so
MTA
basically,
is the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, i.e. Metro North.
So MTA Police basically got funding from the state and installed a multi-million-dollar radio system throughout New York State. They want other local PDs and jurisdictions to jump on board because it just gets them more money from legislation and stuff like that, from what I was told. And so they can keep building on it, maintaining it,
This is
and
like
progressing.
a separate track from the county then.
This is a separate track of the county.
Yes.
The county, this is just for mutual assistance. So if I need more officers, I only have, I have 2 officers working right now, say there's a huge protest outside. I need to call Westchester County, Yorktown, Peekskill. We have a whole operation plan. People come over and assist. Vice versa, we'll do the same thing. Lewisboro will provide 2 cars to another
But
jurisdiction.
the reference I saw to equipment.
So the problem is with so the radios right now, our radios, I won't be able to talk with other jurisdictions because we're on a VHF system, which works outside in open space. If you go down to like White Plains, they're on a UHF. So shorter wavelengths, works better with big buildings, inside buildings. So basically now with the multi-band radios, tri-band, I could talk on the UHF frequency, the VHF frequency, and the digital frequencies. So it's the P25. If anyone's heard P25, this is P25 phase 2. So now one radio, you could talk to everybody. So they did all the fire department in the last 2 or 3 years. Now they're moving on to the police. So now we're going to hopefully get these radios. Like I said, I don't know how many, but that's the agreement here with the IMA. The system that we're replacing is the town system, which we got an estimate. It was probably over $1 million, and there's no guarantee. We had a system installed in April 28th of 2008, and they guaranteed us all this interoperability. Didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been trying to band-aid it for this is before I was even here as a patrol cop. For the last 15 years, putting up repeaters. Motorola promised us this whole system, wasn't really working. So here we are. I got in touch with MTA. They're willing to provide us with free channels, a free network. So we don't have to spend $1 million on a whole system. And the best part about it, we don't have to maintain it. They maintain it. Right. So all we have to do is buy the radios and the equipment. To me, it's a no-brainer. Yes.
Okay.
But they're pretty, I mean, for the police alone, for all the radios, portables, and the radios in the vehicle, which we might be getting for free now from the county. So I could deduct that from the cost.
Oh.
Right now, with all that, the police alone are looking at 246,000.
So you could use the radios from the county and plug them into the MTA system.
Correct. They all interop. They're all the tri-band. So that's a P25 system.
Would we own them still? The ones that we get from the county, or does the county maintain ownership and we basically?
They would probably maintain ownership.
That's what I thought. This is similar to Harrison, so I've looked through these agreements several times. So that you have to maintain the equipment, we can't ruin the equipment, but we have responsibility to upkeep and all, and then we get to use them for free, and then we use the system from the MTA.
Correct.
What essentially like.
And now, so if we have a mutual assistance, we could all talk.
Yeah.
So if there's we're all together, different agencies, federal, state, local, we could all talk to each other. It doesn't matter what frequency you're on.
And a variety of ways as well, in places, both in the buildings and outside. And-
Yes,
and
it-
the
to an
digital
extent,
gives
the
you-
digital
yeah.
will, and then also it could go over on the. You could also have cellular capabilities,
Right.
so if you're in a school. And they have cell phone extenders and stuff like that, and the UHF, VHF and the digital network's not working.
You're still
That comes in
covered.
place now, it'll switch over to,
Yeah,
So they'll, like, if the radios break, the county will replace them,
yes,
right? If,
just the ones in the
maintenance-
vehicle.
Unless it's due to some sort of negligence on our part, that the radios are broken or whatever, then that's my understanding.
I would assume
So
so.
unless it's some like gross negligence, they maintain them, they replace them when they break, all of that. And then we get to use the system from the MTA.
Correct.
Beautiful.
And they program them for the interoperability between county, local fire, EMS, local PD. And they also mentioned national, so I guess there's a potential for
How
national.
soon do you
Federal-
know
federal.
about the county radio supply?
I reached out last week and I haven't got, nobody's returned my call, so I'll reach out again this week. I don't think they probably don't know, they're probably still waiting. I think it says in the agreement, they're still waiting, I believe, on the funds.
Okay.
So.
And this is just to, be clear, this is part of the, like I said, the evolution strategy for a radio communication system. And eventually highway will hopefully upgrade as well. They're probably going to be asking for an upgrade of their radios to match the.
And MTA was actually willing to give me a DPW channel, which is
Right.
the highway channel.
Okay.
So we could talk, now we'd be able to talk to highway. We'll also be able to talk to fire and EMS.
Right.
So we'll go UHF, VHF, and then fire EMS is usually like 700, 800 frequencies.
Great.
And we'll be able to talk to them, they can talk to us.
so it's a win-win.
It's a win-win, it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
And
Okay.
we're saving a ton of money, we just gotta buy the radios, and unfortunately, these tri-band radios, like this one right here is probably about $800. The newer ones are like 6,000.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
These are also, this radio
It's,
was, end of life was 2015.
it's an antique.
It's an antique.
So if everything works out, then the county will give us the radios. If not, then we'll be back here having another discussion.
County's giving.
County only giving us the car radios
Oh.
that I requested. I requested
All right.
for 8. Hopefully they give me 8. They might give me 3 because they got to provide every jurisdiction in Westchester
All
County.
right, so the
But whatever
the body
they-
radios we have to purchase.
Yeah, well, if they don't give us all the, if they don't provide enough radios for all the vehicles, then we have to purchase those as well.
Right.
Through this L3 Harris proposal that we have.
And again, I put in for a grant for $180,000
Right.
for the radios, so hopefully that comes through.
Right,
Also secured private donors in town. Again, Mr. Lauder, $40,000. Thank you
Right.
again, if you
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
happen to be listening.
Does the digital give you a possibility like a visual message down either now or down the road?
It does text everything. It does all that.
Yeah.
If the radios have the screen,
Right.
I don't think you would
So
technically
what do we have
utilize
to do
that.
tonight? Just approve the IMA?
yes, it's the IMA and it's also there's a license agreement for the antenna, so they're also gonna be installing a new antenna.
We have to install. the
Well, we
antenna.
install it, but they
provide it.
provide it, yeah,
But that's also gonna take off that $240,000 because
Right.
that's for one of those digital antennas.
right,
But
Is
if
this
the county
time-
gives us one now, we can deduct that when we pull the
Right.
trigger on it.
right.
So there's a typo in Article 2.
I think we want to.
Yeah.
Do county so that we.
Yep.
Got in line for the equipment.
Absolutely.
Can I move that we do both?
You can.
Or do you want to do them, should we do them separately?
We can do them together, but there's a certificate of authority that has to be signed for each of those. If you're authorizing the supervisor to sign,
Mhm.
then someone has to sign and acknowledge that the supervisor was in fact acting as the supervisor at that time. So if it wants to be the chief of police, you should authorize the supervisor to sign and the chief of police to execute the certificate of authority, or the deputy supervisor, whatever you'd like. Just so there's no confusion, it's actually executed. I said the chief, but.
Would you like to motion?
I would love to motion that we approve of the IMA agreement for the county to provide mobile radios to patrol vehicles and authorizing the supervisor to sign and the chief to acknowledge his authority or his position. And at the same time, approve the license agreement for the antenna for mutual aid radio system and authorizing, again, the supervisor to sign as well as the chief to acknowledge that said supervisor is who he is.
I'll second.
Discussion? Well done, Mayor.
All in favor? Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we need to do a roll call for this? Aye.
We're not spending money.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thanks,
So,
Dave.
on our way here. Yep.
Chief, thank you and your team for your
And
service.
just to add, the cellular coverage in town is also critical for your needs in terms of the in-vehicle system as well.
Absolutely.
That
There, so with this MTA system, there is on the Connecticut border, there's some spots that are a little iffy on the map coverage, and we have map coverages, and this is with all, we tested everything. With all the leaves on the trees, because that's a big factor,
Right.
Especially with this terrain here, and there's some holes out in like, what's the name of it?
Reservoir.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And I'll be honest with you, we tested it without the cellular coverage, portable to portable.
Yeah.
From our headquarters, and it worked perfectly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we did some extensive testing. We even put a mobile one in one of the highway trucks, which is a 40 watt as opposed to just the 5 or 6 watt on a portable. And I was blown away,
Excellent.
and it's crystal clear. So it's definitely a huge upgrade.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dave, for all the time and effort you put into this. I know the multiple meetings with the vendors and MTA and
Yeah,
everyone. So
thank you.
Thanks for.
Please
for
keep
doing
us
this.
posted when you
Yeah.
hear about the grant. That would be great.
Yeah, I will. All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
Great. Thank you very much. Actually, maybe we can jump to the other LPD item in case, so this way we can let you leave. So I'm gonna skip down to F, which is approving Lewisboro Police Department auction of 3 vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye. You're free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna.
Good night. Okay.
Is that like a chief thing? Or you're free to go?
You're free to go. All right, so next we have, this is related to the PFAS class action suit. So a little bit of background, when Peter Parsons was supervisor, there was we entered into as one of the litigants in the class action. And the settlement, there has been a settlement. We received notice of the class action settlement, both from DuPont and 3M. And what we have to do is, so I'm just going to read this portion of the this notice that we received. If your system, meaning us, decides to join one or both settlements, you will need to submit claim forms that provide detailed information about your impacted drinking water sources. Although the deadlines for these events have not yet been finalized, we anticipate that the deadline to make an opt-out decision will fall in December 2023. And the deadline to submit the claim forms will be no later than March 2024. So we have to decide whether we want to, right now, the recommendation is to stay in the class action and not opt out of it. If we opt out of it, it gives us the opportunity. We could pursue it ourselves, but the recommendation is to not do that.
Recommendation by
Kennedy Madonna.
By Kennedy Madonna, yes.
Who was, that's who the town engaged back in May of 2021 to take on their claims. And basically what council had said is there, you can opt out, but the district judge who's hearing the matter basically has said in as much as those who opt out may wait several years for their cases to be remanded back to be heard individually. So his recommendation was you're in because you are a named litigant. There's 440 in the class. There's up to 5,000 or so more that can opt in because all the public water supplies in the region, applicable region, are being asked. Okay. But I think the idea was to inform the public that you were going to participate in the settlement and authorize the submission of the claim forms for your water systems with the information that's required.
Right. So do we need to motion?
I would,
I mean,
yeah.
Just to
I would make a motion to
formalize.
authorize participation in the class action settlement and the submission of all necessary claim forms to protect your interest.
Well, okay, so don't we have a default? We have to affirmatively opt out, so we're already in. Right?
You
We're
are,
already in,
and I think that,
So-
so,
But
So-
it doesn't hurt to
formalize it.
put
Formalize it.
just.
Okay.
So there's
You
no
want to
question.
adopt it?
you can adopt that.
Sure, so adopting what council says, which is to remain in the class action and allow and submit the claim forms or
We're
information
approving
as
to
needed.
stay in the PFAS class action suit and file the required accompanying documents as
Claim forms.
required by legal representation.
Well, second or third, whichever that was.
I think that was the second motion. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, next is approving city carding and refuse, city carding refuse and recycling bid.
Or
This is for the town's pickup, yeah, waste pickup and recycling.
Isn't it just for the
Correct, Janet?
license?
No, it's for-
this is their bid to provide services to the town, right?
Yes.
And they won the bid?
Yes, there were three other bids. And we were the lowest. Council looked it over.
Yeah. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, next is the resolution establishing a standard workday for elected officials.
I need, this number's been sitting there for me, for years and it's.
You sign a form then
Yeah.
after 8 years saying that your duties really haven't changed. Or
Okay.
if you want to start over and do calculations, you can, but
Yeah, I mean, can I take a look at it? Cause I just let it, like, I haven't really paid any attention to it for years. This has to be done now?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to.
And I need to fill out the form.
but you're not participating, but I guess Nisha wants you to go.
Yeah,
Wait, why isn't Mary participating?
I haven't filled out the form.
Because you haven't done.
But
it.
it's the retirement system.
This is the
Yeah.
retirement system.
Right.
So I was told you were participating.
I didn't participate last year. I was thinking that perhaps I should start. So
that would be next year. She would have to report, right, for January through March. That's the reporting.
It's technically, yes.
January to
if you
May.
decide next year.
January to May, 90 consecutive days in the 5-month window. You have to track your time.
90 consecutive.
Within
Oh,
January
yeah.
1 to May
Got
31st.
it, yeah.
That's the time window.
But this is for up till the end of 23,
Correct.
Right. So
right?
Oh, so
Yes.
this is like, we can't change this at this point.
Correct.
Oh, well, okay, that's fine.
So
And then with like starting next year, there,
Correct.
we do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, which is,
It should have been done earlier this year, but
right,
Okay.
it's my understanding that it has to be based on 90 consecutive days during the first 4 months of the year. That's how it was explained to me.
Yes, what the guard just said.
I think it's through May 31st, but it is any 90 consecutive
90
day
consecutive,
window in
yeah.
that time frame.
Okay,
That's
so-
fine. So we're just, what do we have to do? Approve this?
we're good. I posted on the website and
Okay.
the bulletin board for 30 days, and then I sent it in to the community.
And,
I'd like to motion that we establish a standard workday for the elected officials. in the town of Lewisboro.
second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Right?
The auctions, last is the renewing the cabaret license.
second to last, the donation bin for the community. center.
Oh, that'll be, yeah. So it's in terms of what's published. So resolution, yeah, this is the cabaret license, renewal of the cabaret license for the Chateau, the period of 1 year.
I'll move.
Second, discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you have a new item,
I,
right?
this did not make the agenda on the Hindu service organization that came and presented their thanks, is celebrating Diwali by collecting donations for the community center of Northern Westchester. gotten approval from the library director to have a donation box there. And I'd like to get approval to have a donation box here. For those of you who are not familiar or have forgotten, Diwali is the Hindu celebration of Festival of Lights. It's like a combination of Hanukkah and Passover because you celebrate the victory over evil. And it is a way of also connecting with one another. There are gifts for the small children, lots of eating, and a great sense of community. You make a commitment to taking care of each other as well as those less fortunate. Personally, our family's been doing this sort of donation thing, not just for Diwali, but for Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving as well. So in continuing that tradition, I'd like to have a box here.
Here and next door?
Yes. And if someone would like to make a donation and can't make it, you can email me at marymshah@lewisboro.gov.com. That's MSHAH@lewisboro.gov.com.
What are you collecting?
Food and clothing.
So
Dried,
Non-perishable.
non-perishable,
canned goods, things like that.
things like non-perishable boxes of milk or cake mixes, beans,
So we should market this, and maybe if you get a list.
Yes.
What those not perishable items are, we could post it on the website, email
Do
blast
we,
on
do we
Friday.
have to vote?
And all of the stuff goes to
The
Northern-
Community Center of Northern Westchester in Katona, New York, to serve our community.
Do we need to, need to vote to put a donation box on town property?
I don't necessarily need to, but I don't know if the motion got a second and you have to withdraw it or not.
Well, it was just was thinking about, this kind of came up in a different context when I was on the library board a little bit as far as.
Do you not have Toys for Tots and whatnot that you allow for boxes?
I can't remember.
I
don't know if we've done
Something I meant.
Fire departments do
Fire
that.
departments do it.
Toys for Tots. And all kinds of things.
Okay.
Look, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I'm all in favor of it,
Yes.
but once you do it for one, just remember that other members of the community may have other organizations that they wish to donate to and may want to put donation boxes at the townhouse. So once we do it for one organization, we have to be understanding that we may have requests to do it for others. I
Right.
personally am in favor for it, because there's never a bad time to give, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Vote on it or just sense of the board?
All right,
Was
so-
it already, because that's a resolution, then I second it.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next we have the second public comment for new business only. Would anyone here like to speak?
I'm not sure this qualifies either because it's back to the PFAS issue.
It is new business.
New business.
Okay, great.
Good.
Three things. I had a question before, and I'm not sure if anyone can answer, is fire department water considered public water? Is there any plan to have it tested? That's one thing. I don't know if I won't expect any answers.
Well, the fire departments, just so you know, each one is an individual fire district. It's not town property, it's fire district property. So independent of that, they are taxing districts similar to the school district, but it is their property. So it's not under the
But the
guise of the town. We can't direct them to test.
State regulations require testing of public water supplies, and those are defined by how many people they serve. So
Yes.
I would think that those qualify, but I don't know.
Yeah, if you want to have a discussion.
Okay, yeah, I'm just concerned that this be on people's radar because it really isn't, and this is a important issue. The second is just a concern about the lack of communication between the town and the school district on this issue. Water had been tested back in 2021, and I don't think town officials were aware of the levels of the problem until I informed them after foiling the schools. And so I would think that there would be an open line of communication. And when something like this comes up, everybody's talking to everybody else because we all need to keep each other safe. So if there's no vehicle for that, I think that'd be a great thing to sort of come up with. The other thing is just reiterating the concern that residents, especially those who live in proximity to the schools that have tested high, and also probably the fire departments, have not been informed that there's a potential problem with their water, so that they can test and remediate and keep themselves safe. Especially in light of finding out that Supervisor Parsons had opted in to a class action lawsuit because we have grounds, but our residents still don't know the extent of this problem. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Anyone else here? Name and Hamlet, Bob.
Excuse me?
Name and Hamlet.
Oh, Bob Collins, Elmwood Road. Just to save time, I apologize for not being able to be here at the start of the meeting. Was the subject of honor true covered under the first public comment? It was.
It was.
And the electrical installation? Then I will hold my fire.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else here like to speak? No, how about on Zoom?
Yes. Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
How is that?
That's great.
Okay, thank you. I do apologize. It was under old business, but you did bring up some information tonight that wasn't in the agenda. So my question is, or my statement, you mentioned that we're at the tax cap with taking out $450,000 for paving and perhaps bonding for the paving instead. And if it is in the budget would be an 8% increase. I don't know what the budget increase is right now, since we took that $450,000 out to stay at the tax cap, because I don't have the papers in front of me. As a resident, I would really love to see a numbers analysis on keeping it in the budget, how much that's going to cost a household for the next year, because it's a yearly budget, versus bonding for the paving for whatever amount and extrapolate that over the amount of years, because I'm assuming there's interest applied to that bond. So how that would affect a household, or the hybrid. So I'm just saying, as a resident, before you make that decision, if it's cheaper to keep it in this year and go above the tax cap a little and go to an 8% increase, maybe residents would rather have that than paying more out over a certain number of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute.
I'd like to speak about PFAS and get more information regarding the class action lawsuit, which I found in the local newspaper, had no clue about it. I want to know how it impacts local residents specifically, especially in Oak Ridge, but surrounding areas as well, as all 4 of my kids went through Meadow Pond, and God knows what sicknesses lurk from the water. Being that I found out about the lawsuit in a newspaper, not from the board, I'd really like, what I've been asking for such a long time, is transparency. And I want to know what out-of-pocket expenses the town actually has, being that we are allegedly getting a grant. And I do feel strongly, and it may not be in this class action, but I know nothing about it, so I'd like to read on it before I make any kind of statements or assertions. Who are the actual people that are included? are they individuals? But until I understand it, I can't speak about it and want to know how I access this information. I also want to just say, and it came up under new business, although it's not on the agenda, talking about the Diwali, which I think is great. You know, I'm open to all of it. But I just feel over and over that Christmas gets slashed all the time. It's just against Christians. I don't get it. We're putting up a menorah. I love that. We're talking about a Diwali box to donate things to. Think that's fabulous. Why doesn't anyone think it's fabulous to call a Christmas tree a tree? We're not going around decorating a tree for nothing. So let's kind of stay in line and do the right thing, I think, for everyone. So we can kind of unify around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Beth Uretsky, I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate it. So this is something that I don't know if you guys have discussed recently this year or not. Richard Scalera, I know that we've briefly touched upon it on social media. Living in Cross River and my husband commuting to New York City, my husband had been using the Katona train station. Even though the parking lot right near the train station is usually less than half filled on a daily basis, he has chosen to use the daily parking, even though it's more money, instead of parking over by, I believe it's called Paulie's Deli. So that was his choice. Now that we're living in Golden's Bridge, we chose to call Golden's Bridge train station to find out about parking there. My understanding is that station is run by the MTA as well as, and they have a third-party company running their parking. As opposed to Katona being under Bedford, Bedford gives Katona residents and Bedford residents primary status and preferential, I guess, treatment, if you want, about being at the top of the list, as opposed to Lewisboro residents. As opposed to Golden's Bridge, they will take your name to be put on the list. However, even though the property is, my understanding, within Lewisboro, there's no preferential priority listing for any Lewisboro residents. You could be in Purdy's, Somers, Carmel, any other town, and as you request to be on the list, that's where they put you. So I'm not too sure what the history is behind it. I'm not too sure what the agreement was way back. And I'm not too sure if there is anything we could do, but I'd really appreciate if the town board could look into this and at least try to get Lewisboro residents to have a priority on the list. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Janet. Okay, next is approval of claims. I'd like to motion that we approve claims. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Polling of the board. I'll start with this end, Rich. Next one.
My notes are all over the place here. First of all, in the initial public comment, heard Simone's information about continuing to test high in Oak Ridge. If there's any specific test results referable to a unit or something, I would hope that you could, share that information so we can investigate it and see what actually the situation is referable to any testing results that you might have. I'd be certainly interested in having the opportunity to take a look at that. Next, in the public comment about hearing about the Alice Poor deed, I don't know if that copy that could be forwarded. I guess we can get that.
Yeah, I think I might distribute,
That's
but
what
I have.
Yeah, I think
with
we
this
should,
solar
yeah.
thing, yeah.
And about the no new construction except recreation, I think that, we have to, take a look at that as we go through the process as far as the carport aspect of it. I think it's inconsistent with what the traditional use of the property in Ontario has been, and I think we should really take a hard look at potential other options besides that as we go through that. And I think we have an opportunity to do so as we go through. I think I'm hearing another comment. We do have a priority, my understanding, Lewisboro residents do referable to the parking. And so I'll get some details on that, but I'm going back from memory. I think there was like 500 spots that go back for Lewisboro residents of Golden Bridge when the bypass was done, going back way back when. So I think there was an opportunity. And second, from that, I had spoken to Pete Harcum about maybe talking to the MTA about adjusting post-pandemic the amount of available day spots, adjusting to people who commute, 2 or 3 times a week, and so try and get a dialogue going as far as that. I agree, we are a pluralistic society, and calling it a Christmas tree and a Christmas celebration, and Christmas has been a federal holiday since 1870. So as born and raised Jewish, Christmas tree, calling it a Christmas tree is no problem to me. We're a pluralistic society. The fact that everybody has it off as a federal holiday is fine by me. I can sing the Christmas carols with the best of them.
Just do it on key.
That's right. I'll hold it to my shower. That's right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Mary.
I believe that we should honor the spirit with which Ellispoor donated the On a True Farm to the town of Lewisboro. And if we can find an alternative space for the carports, that would be
They're not gonna be carports, but anyway.
okay. Just don't call me late for dinner. And speaking of language choice, a Christmas, I do agree with Beth and Jimbo and Simone and probably Barbara as well, that a Christmas tree is a Christmas tree. My husband, who is Hindu, had a Christmas tree every year when he was growing up and only started celebrating Diwali on a regular basis once I made the scene. To let you know, the calendar has it marked down as a winter celebration, but we will be having Santa Claus come as well as other cartoon characters that make the children happy, and handing out candy canes and other Christmas-like things on December 4th from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Lewisboro Town Park. We will be lighting a menorah on the nights of Hanukkah in front of the library. And as far as I know, we are still in the planning.
I think townhouse.
It's in front of the townhouse this year?
I was told by the code, yeah.
Okay.
Either way.
One side of the driveway or the other, it's gonna be in this neck of the woods, and it will be a family oriented celebration with hot chocolate and songs and prayers, and everyone is welcome. And I'm grateful to be a part of this lovely town.
Thank you. Your turn, Andrea.
Yep. A happy belated Veterans Day to all of our veterans out there, including my husband and some of my neighbors. Unfortunately, I had to miss the festivities on Saturday due to a family obligation, but happy Veterans Day.
It was lovely.
I saw, I was sad that I missed it this year. Is the first one that I've missed. Again, I'm looking forward to the holiday celebration. I'm hoping that calling it a holiday tree was just merely an oversight, and that it's a Christmas tree. And Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope everyone has a wonderful one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna touch on this, but the question about the applicability of the PFAS, thing, that's for public water systems only, this
Correct.
class action, right?
Yeah,
So it's
not
gonna
for residential wells.
cover everybody's wells and things like that, so
Right.
that's still an open issue there.
And the parties are all municipalities, right? Or no?
The
Municipality-
public water supplies,
Public
one way or
water
the other.
supplies,
There are many
it's-
public water supplies that are run by private operators, so like Suez, Water and Westchester Joint Waterworks. They may be parties too. They run it for those groups of municipalities, but it's a private operator, but it governs the supply.
So in other words, like the Michelle Estates water system is
Private.
private. There's no. Well, yeah.
Private.
Right and wrong. Right?
I mean, I think the
That's
fire
where-
departments, as per, would be considered public, but they would have to opt in. They would have had to pursue it themselves as an individual entity. They're not covered under the town.
And I'm not certain that they meet the criteria, the number of users, right? Either.
Oh.
They're largely limited to their facilities for consumption, right? And this is a consumption issue, but they're separately governed. It's their own set of commissioners, their own budget, everything like that.
If
They're
the
probably
fire departments were paid fire departments that were, and they were considered, property and employees of the town, then they would be covered under the town being a participant in. But since they are individual and independent, and they would have had to attempt to opt in themselves and meet the criteria.
And they still can if they do.
So that number of users, is that per water treatment unit or is it per entity? In other words, like this.
Water system.
For water.
For water system, so
Yeah.
this building here is also not a huge number, but. We're saying it meets
No,
the
but it
criteria.
is a public, it's a municipally
No,
owned.
no, of
public
course,
water
but he
system.
was saying, that Greg was saying that, the fire department may not. Meet the
Not a-
criteria, the number of users.
Right, but we as a municipality,
I thought we discussed
In total,
I believe.
that's what my question was, whether it's by unit or
What's
by.
Fueler.
Fueler
Fuel.
He say not enough. We spoke to the council that there's not enough users to apply. You had specifically asked that.
Yeah.
Response.
All right.
But we as a
Go back and
town,
check, but I think you're right,
Check
yeah.
that.
we as a town, made the application to be part of this class, and we met the criteria based on number of users. For combining of water systems throughout the town, the public. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of it.
Got it. All right.
I can
Just,
find- There's
clarity,
a mass series of pleadings at the front end of this thing from a few years ago that I'm happy to look through and kind of give you some detail. I'm sure it's riveting, so.
I mean, as we learn more about it, we'll definitely share whatever
But it is
information we can. but-
public.
Yeah.
And
supplies.
just, we did talk about putting some basic information up on the website, so we're gonna think we want to
Yeah,
follow up on
I-
that.
I
Just,
could-
the links to
I
the,
think these settlement agreements, we can post that, those are public.
and the state, whatever
So-
state links there are.
I know
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
over
not,
the
this is not
infrastructure.
part of
Yeah.
polling of the board, but since we're on the topic. Is there any indication as to what can be done or is permitted to be done with any settlement proceeds that are awarded to the town?
There's no limitation on what can be done within the scope of the settlement. That we spoke about that, but my take on it is it only can be used for districts.
For the mitigation.
Yeah, for within those districts. It can't be used townwide.
That's what I wanted to be clear. It's not like,
I mean, that's really it's a budgeting and GML thing. You couldn't spread it outside the districts that got awarded funds from the settlement.
yeah, my interest is. When we get the money, what do we get to spend it on and how? I mean, that's the most important aspect of this.
And the districts for capital improvement or O&M, that's what I would say.
Right.
I think we want to spend it generally,
Yeah.
this mitigating this issue.
Whatever, reverse osmosis, carbon filtration, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever the next thing is.
So Martha wants to, will
Just
the
a
board
Good
approve?
question, because Meadow Pond has the huge problem in this town.
Does that qualify under this class action? or
I-
the school
They
has-
pay, they have to apply. The school district.
So who do you contact at the school to talk about?
The school district.
Nobody.
I can ask them. I can let them know we're part of the class action. Are they as well? I don't, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
I would hope
Okay.
so.
Huh?
It's their council, so you don't Smith.
All right.
The suggestion was made.
But
Let's let Jan finish his polling.
Yeah, I was gonna
Sorry
say,
about that.
Barbara Mangione had suggested that we do a more detailed analysis of bonding versus not, so I would second that.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to do that. And certainly bonding does mean that the residents are ultimately gonna pay more for
Yeah.
this.
I think she misunderstood. The 8% would be a question if we kept the $450,000 in without the bonding. And if we don't keep it in for the bonding, it's 2 and
So it's at the cap.
2.
So right now, the
Point, whatever
the cap is 2.57%. That's where we are now. If we put that 450,000 back into the budget, the tax rate increase goes up to 8%, a little over 8%.
Yeah, and you know, the average household is gonna pay a little bit over $100 more a year versus what is the bond repayment
Yeah.
look like? So
We
you know,
can look into
look at
that
over
and
time, just
advertise
so
it.
we're doing that with open house. Yeah, so that's it.
Thanks, Ned. All right, so Barbara also asked about the fast charges in Golden's Bridge. So I was not going to reach out to the manufacturer. The shopping center owner or the property manager was. I brought that to their attention. They are following up with the manufacturer to see what they can do to dim the lights that are quite bright. They are getting a lot of use. I've see cars there every night and during the day whenever I drive by. Yeah, in terms of the impact of fast chargers on batteries, yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but I do understand that fast chargers, while they're good to get a quick 20-minute charge, that's going to give you, I don't know, 100 miles. Yeah, it decreases your battery life.
To your own risk.
But that's, yeah, use at your own risk, right? True Solar, yes, we heard the feedback, no additional structures. Dan and team were over there today. We're considering putting them on a roof on one of the barns, which initially, when we talked about this, we didn't want to touch the buildings, but that seems to be a good option. But of course, we won't do anything without consulting everyone who has
Yeah, it's not happening tomorrow. We're starting.
Just to chime in, I know that a lot of repair has to be done to those buildings as it is. The roofs of the barn and things, my understanding is they are in desperate need of.
Not this one.
This particular barn.
This particular one. It's
So I was hoping that we could kind of kill two birds with one stone, do a little.
well, we're working on getting FEMA reimbursement, so we do have
68 or something.
quotes. Well, that we got already for COVID, $68,000.
So that's good.
But we have another possibility to get from Superstorm Sandy to get monies for repairing the damage at Onatru, which, you know, we've done some minor repairs. But that could be like another $60,000 to $70,000 potentially. So working on getting that and getting the other roofs that need to be repaired.
Yeah, but anyway, we're working closely. We're talking to the garden club. We're meeting people out there. We're getting different options, and it's not gonna not gonna fall tomorrow. So.
And also in terms of now we're talking about reimbursements of funds. So we did get on October 31st the $150,000 SAM grant reimbursement for the work that went into Fox Valley and Town Park.
Excellent.
That included the batting cages and related site work and the scoreboard and the related electrical work that LBA requested. The new playground, an LBA banner, that was part of it as well. They paid for that.
The paving that was done, that was from prior, right?
That was from another grant,
Yeah.
right? Actually, yes, the one at Fox Valley. That was, I think that was a grant. No, that was part of a bond that we had for improvements. Yeah, pretty sure. The Onatru paving is going to be a grant. That's the one we're working on. And then the ADA trail, the Americans with Disability Act trail at Town Park, and the associated DEC permitting work for the stormwater work that was part of that trail. I'm sorry, not the stormwater, but the permitting work, because we were within the DEC, proximity to the DEC wetlands. So
You want to thank you.
and thanks to Carrie for finalizing a submission with DASNY. So thank you very much, Carrie. And Greg also for getting us over there was one remaining question they had for us, and Greg was able to successfully answer that question, and that closed it out. So thank you. Let's see a couple of other things. The MTA list we spoke about. Yes, those spots, we do have reserved spots. I don't know how many, and we'll have to look at the agreement and whether they were all taken up.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
They don't tell people.
Right.
that they're going to the top of the list.
Right.
But that's internal.
Okay. So we need to maybe,
So even if they say
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go to the top of the list. they
right,
Don't acknowledge that.
got it. Okay.
And I've gotten the list and their
Mhm.
name wasn't on it, so I'm assuming they didn't submit an
Yeah,
application.
And where do they, is there, to go to a particular?
I can
site
send
for
you
it?
the email. I found a woman who's MTA.
Okay.
Maybe we can put that on the site or something, so information. Just, no, I mean, the kind of email, not that we're doing it, no. I'll just.
Yeah. All right. So we'll try to
Keep it on.
fix that.
Okay.
Getting back to the Christmas tree thing. So a little bit of background. We used to have a Christmas tree at Town Park. It was hit by lightning. And Beth was correct that before COVID, we got together it was Beth, it was Barbara Mangione, a couple of us from the Lions Club, and we wanted to figure out where to put the replacement Christmas tree, and also have a winter celebration where we could celebrate all the holidays that fall around that time of year. And that might be where this winter celebration name came from. That's now being used in the Parks and Rec literature, I guess, brochure. Fast forward to post-COVID, the Lions Club, we decided, let's put up a Christmas tree and let's pay for it. We actually had a donation from Tom Gossett, so he donated the tree to the Lions Club, and the Lions Club donated to the town, and that's the tree that's over at the Town Park. And yes, it is a Christmas tree, and it'll be lit. We had the last time we lit it, we had the menorah there because it coincided Christmas and Hanukkah. But now, because Hanukkah is so much earlier this year, December 7th, we decided to do that here. Decision was made to do it here at Parks and Rec. But we'll still have a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. So that will be, I'm not sure if I think that's already scheduled for sometime in December.
It was a great time last year.
It was.
All the
we had
high
music.
school groups were singing. It was wonderful.
Right. So that will continue. And I think that's all I have. So, yeah. So, next we have the announcements. Town board meeting. The next town board meeting is Monday, November 27th at 2023 at 7:30 p.m. here at the townhouse. And now I'd like a motion to go into executive session for personnel issue. So second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Thanks to the folks on Zoom. Thank you.